Hello and welcome back to Talkin' Giants, presented by the Fanatics Sportsbook. Today is May 4th, 2026, and May the 4th be with you. I've never seen a Star Wars movie. I'm a fraud. We had the He's a Giant guys on, Monte and Sal. They do a great job covering the Giants, but it's not just another Giants podcast. It is a NFL draft, Giants-specific podcast that goes all year round. So I couldn't call on two more qualified guys than those guys to have a 2026 Giants draft class deep dive. And a reminder, we're rolling out a new podcast schedule, releasing on Mondays today and then Thursdays. So Mondays, at least for the next couple weeks and for the offseason, going to make it pretty interview based. I'm going to try and maybe get a reporter on for next Monday to give some draft tidbits. And then Sean and I, we're going to be back on Thursday, and then those are going to be like themed episodes and things like that. Mondays and Thursdays, no longer Tuesdays and Fridays over the offseason, unless some news happens and some breaking news happens. But He's a Giant, guys. They came on. Give them a follow. Subscribe to their channel. If you really like this, tell them, leave a comment on their 2-hour and 20-minute draft recap and say, I really loved you coming on Talking Giants. Be sure to check that out, too. Before we bring it over to Monte and Sal, I got to talk to you about SeatGeek, because today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. The MLB season is here. The NBA, NHL playoffs are happening. There's so much that's going on right now. The World Cup is coming to the States this summer, and there's going to be a ton of games and even events that's worth seeing live. I'm going to some NASCAR races. Guess where I got my tickets to go to Dover? Guess where I got my tickets to go to Charlotte? I got them on SeatGeek, which is why I want to give a shout out to SeatGeek, because they are awesome, because they have over 35 million downloads, and they're the number one rated ticketing app in the entire world, and they have over 70,000 listed events. I'm going to a Charlie Puth concert at the end of May. You'll never guess where I got my tickets. Of course, it's SeatGeek, and I was able to get some money off with this code JOHNBOY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code JOHNBOY10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. The schedule for the NFL is coming out in the next couple weeks. You can add that code to your John Boy account, and then whenever you decide to go to a Giants game, or even if you just want to get a parking pass, because you can use the code for a parking pass too. You can get parking passes on SeatGeek too. When we know the NFL schedule, have that code automatically added to your account so you can be the first to get some tickets. Thank you to SeatGeek. Thank you to He's a Giant for coming on. And here's Monte and Sal. All right, welcome back to the show. And I want to welcome on two of my very, very good friends. It is Sal. It is Monte from He's a Giant. Fellas, I wanted to have you on. Especially I want to give a thanks to Monte, too, because it was around a year ago, probably a little over a year ago now, where Monte and I kind of officially ushered in the Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart era, where we stayed up very late on a Thursday night into Friday morning talking about Jackson Dart. We probably stayed up really, really late because a lot of people, we weren't fully expecting Jackson Dart, so we needed to do like a lot of last-minute cramming and Jackson Dart notes, or at least I certainly did. But you guys have a Giant-centered podcast that basically – it's the most unique Giants podcast, where it is centered around the draft, and those kinds of conversations are happening year round. I love you guys. I respect you guys. You guys do really great work. You just put out a 2-hour and 20-minute recap last week of the Giants draft class. So we're going to talk all about that. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining me.
You're doing good, man. Thanks for having us on. Yeah, it's crazy. It's already a year ago that we jumped on, did the like 3 a.m. podcasts. Welcome in the era. It was good, man. But yeah, it's fun. We're through the 2026 draft season. We're moving on to 2027 soon. It's wild.
No, we're not. No, we're not. No. I'm not doing that right now.
It feels like, honestly, it's like we do this all year, and I still feel like I'm behind on the prospects. I feel like I never can get as far as I want to get.
Will there ever be a year where anybody says I'm ahead in the process?
I don't think anyone says that. Even fucking guys who do it for a living.
Well, we've learned now. This is our 3rd year doing it, and we're technically ahead of everybody else in the Giants world of doing it. And by the time we get to like November, the guys we reviewed in September, a lot of them fell off, and now there's a new batch of players for those position groups. So we're ahead, but sometimes we're behind because they're guys who've emerged. So It's dynamic. We just kind of go through a bunch of guys as much, throughout the season, and then at the end we have to kind of do it all over again. But it's easier for us after the season because we've mostly seen all these guys. We've seen how they progress during the year, so it's not as much like heavy duty film work for us leading into the draft like some of you guys do. Because I know like you guys are like just grinding tape day and night in the pre-draft season. We definitely don't do that. Like we've done so much already.
Holes.
Yeah, we're just filling holes, and we're kind of like plugging in. Who didn't we watch? Who do you want to watch again? That's kind of where we are in the pre-draft process. It's a little bit different. And
Sean is a big time college football watcher, and this was obviously the first year that we did like I did the full draft month with him, and I can't describe how valuable it was to have like the story and the narrative of a guy's season where he kind of knew that. And that's just from him just casually watching, where you guys have like your literal show over the last 3 years has been telling the guys stories of what happens with them, not just, all right, well, I'm going to watch 2 or 3 games and then I'm going to come on and give a write-up of them. But what are these guys doing on a week-to-week basis that's shaping who they are as prospects and their overall stories and narratives as players? So honestly, I do want to start off with Arvell Reese, obviously the 5th overall pick, right? First round. The perspective that you guys have on this too is understanding where the college football timeline and the college football season is, understanding where the consensus is, understanding where the Giants are picking on a week-to-week basis as the end of the season comes around. So tell me about kind of like the timeline of Arvell Reese, at least with you guys, what you were thinking about him, his overall maybe fit or not so fit with the Giants as even the college football season is shaping up, and then even bring me to, somehow your reaction at draft night. And the Titans take Carnell Tate at 4, and like even bring me to that reaction of what you're thinking of knowing that Arvell Reese probably is the best player on the board, but is that where you want the Giants to go? So talk to me kind of like through this whole timeline of how Arvell Reese kind of becomes a Giant.
Yeah. So when we did our linebacker review early in the season, very early on, Arvell Reese was not on the radar of the top linebacker prospects in the class. Sonny Styles was, but Reese wasn't. So we did a relatively early episode, if I recall, and we were watching Sonny Styles, and we had a lot of his early season tape. And I remember Monty saying, this guy's kind of like, he's good, but he's not super dynamic. I don't see the athlete he's supposed to be. And when you're watching the tape and you're seeing the other guy next to him just flying all over the field, and you're like, who the hell is this guy? And we talked to some of our friends who are Ohio State guys, and they were like, yeah, pay attention to Arvell Reese. That guy, he's different. He's a dynamic athlete. And I watched him more carefully, and I was like, wow, this guy is really like a downhill, wild linebacker. And then he got better and better as the season went on, and he kind of took the, kind of the Abdul Carter, path, but it was more like Jalen Walker a year ago from Georgia, truly an off-ball linebacker with some pass rush ability, and just got better and better. And the story of Arvell Reese was basically that I think he emerged. He's young. He's 20. He's relatively new to playing at this level, and he just kind of got better and better. And I think Matt Patricia noticed that he could deploy him as a weapon. And throughout the season, kind of hibernated. He alternated. I want to hibernate. He alternated between, playing off-ball linebacker and edge. And, he really became that defensive weapon. And it became very clear that he was the most dynamic athlete on that team. Out of the 3 defensive players on Ohio State, he was, I think, the least polished, the least like defensive captain-y, but clearly the most dynamic athlete and explosive, highest upside. We didn't think we were going to have access to him. I think we kind of went about it saying we're probably not going to get him. We had an episode with KSIXI a few weeks ago, and we all agreed that with Tremaine Edmonds on the team, as much as we were big Sonny Styles, I was a big Sonny Styles guy. Arvell Reese was probably like the better fit. That Tremaine Edmonds handled a certain portion of the field, had certain strengths, and Arvell Reese was like a perfect complement to him as a weak side linebacker, whereas Styles kind of replicated what Tremaine Edmonds had to offer. Yep. So we thought he'd be like the perfect fit. We just never thought he would be available to us at 5. So, I was shocked that he was there, to be honest. I was surprised we didn't trade the pick. That was honestly my opinion. I thought we were going to trade that pick because I thought there was going to be a haul, but the way the Giants ran up and took him, I think they viewed it the same way we kind of talked about with KSI, which is he's a perfect off-ball linebacker fit next to Tremaine Edmonds, who happens to be able to rush the passer. And that was just kind of the evolution of him as a prospect. I think he's a perfect fit here, honestly.
Yeah, Monty, I mean, the Titans take Tate, and like draft night, are you still, because I feel like all of us, I don't know about you guys, but all of us feel like we got in this styles down kind of line of thinking, at least with 5, and then I was big on Mauigoa at 10. As long as the back came up really clean and good. But Titans, I keep saying Cardinals. The Titans take Tate at 4. So then are you still kind of like zeroed in on that train, or are you kind of embracing, hey, this is the best player on the board. This is the best athlete on the board. What were you kind of thinking at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really expect it, but yeah, my mindset kind of went to fuck it, bring me Arvell Reese kind of
Nice.
thing. I was waiting for the trade to come. I was waiting to see, but I wasn't even really, because it said pick was in the second. I was waiting to see if it would happen, and it was immediately pick was in, and I was like, all right, let's see what it is. Like, I didn't think I'd be unhappy with what to do. I was a little bit of fear with Jordan Tyson, all that shit, but
yeah.
I was excited as soon as Arvell Reese got announced. It was like, okay, like this guy is a fantastic football player. And, really have to kind of reimagine about what this defense is going to be. And that was something that Sal and I talked about going into the draft right after the Dexter Lawrence trade, is like, you're not going to replicate the type of defense we had. Like, you can't, like, with Dexter Lawrence leaving, you have to reimagine how the Giants are doing things. And it felt like Arvell Reese was kind of the first step into that. We can reimagine about how we're going to play defense.
I mean, I have an idea of what does him being a will linebacker look like. And really for year one, right? For year one, what I kind of want him to be, I want this coaching staff to ask him to attack and go and don't really think. Because I think there's going to be so many things in the NFL that he's going to have to be asked to do that he was never really asked to do at Ohio State. I think he even mentioned it while they were talking, he was talking about, what do they kind of teach you about being an edge rusher and a pass rusher? And I think at one point he was like, I don't know. They didn't really teach me anything. They just told me to go after the quarterback and just wreak havoc, right? So this is a very kind of raw player, but this is also why you're paying John Harbaugh, $20-25 million a year. It's for this exact reason, to develop players like this. So what does him being a will linebacker look like, in your opinion, in the NFL in 2026? What things do you think he can immediately do really well? And then what are some things that maybe that we're going to need to be really patient on when it comes to his development?
I think he's playing a traditional off-ball linebacker role this year, honestly, where I think his primary job is going to be to control run fits behind our defensive line. And he's actually very good at it. I don't think he's quite as polished as some other middle linebacker prospects coming out, but I do think in this defense, I can just see John Harbaugh saying fundamentals this year, you're really playing off-ball linebacker and you're destroying the run game. And he's the kind of guy that I think he's not going to be somebody that can get bullied by offensive linemen climbing. Right? I mean, you've probably seen the cut-ups of him just tossing guys who are, 100 pounds heavier than him with one arm. And he's 20 years old. So I think he's coming down as a crashing run stuffer primarily. Now Tremaine Edmonds does that too. I think he has the athletic ability to drift into coverage a little bit and play good zone defense, and he has that kind of range. But I think a lot of this is going to be stop the run on the early downs. And then I think they're going to flirt with him on the edge on passing downs and NASCAR packages, but I don't expect to see him use that as a primary part of his game this year. I heard you talking about it one of your pods, Justin, where you're saying you really think they're going to use him as an edge ultimately. And that might be the vision. But I have a feeling that they're going to stick with off-ball linebacker this year. I think we should expect to see him almost like in that Micah McFadden type role the last couple of years. It's just a much more superior athlete, obviously, and much higher level. But I expect him to see him that way and blitzing a lot. That's kind of what I expect from him.
Yeah. I'll add, you watch what they did with Arvell Reese at Ohio State, and especially the second half of the season, Matt Patricia used him a lot on that, like as a QB spy. I think, with having Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts in your division, I think that is a way they will certainly use him and use his sideline to sideline speed. I think they will, I think they'll rotate him into as an edge. I don't think that will be where he is primarily, but I think he'll get in there. I think they'll probably run some like double mug and put I hope they do with him and like Abdul and the A gaps. I think you could, they're going to be creative with them. And I think but I agree with Sal that I think he's going to be a little bit more of the traditional linebacker this season. I think they're going to want to work on developing him there.
And Sal, you knew exactly where I was going to go next. Like thinking about his long-term development and spot, right? I don't know if this is me. I don't want this taken as like, oh, Justin's nitpicking this and he's looking for the negative. It's not even looking for the negative. It's just genuinely things that I think like himself as a player, his team, his agents, like the people that represent him, and they're looking out for his long-term interests. And when you have people that are looking out for your long-term interests, it is, hey, we want you to make a lot of money. And the bottom line is that when you're on the consensus board heading into the 2026 draft as the second best player in the draft, and the majority of people are talking about you being an edge rusher, and then you're taken to a team at 5, and then they're taking you to be an interior linebacker. I can imagine that there is somewhat of a like, damn, kind of with people that are around him, and whether that be agents, whatever. So I can imagine that there will maybe get to a certain point where he is going to want to play edge rusher, and that is, I think it's a good problem right now, considering what the Giants have in Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, and he's going to be 30 years old during his last year of his deal with the Giants. I think that'll be 2028, the 2028 season. So I wonder, like 2-3 years from now, if Arvell Reese is making a transition to more of an edge rusher where he's taking more edge snaps than interior linebacker snaps. Do you think that could be part of their plans? And is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, I think the first couple of years he's playing off-ball linebacker, and he's getting more and more pass rush responsibility as time goes on. His third year, that sort of that critical year where you have to see what a guy is before you deal with the 5th-year option and start thinking about extensions. That's Brian Burns' last year. That's Abdul Carter's 4th year. It's a transitory phase for our edge room, and that's presuming Kayvon's not here. We're not even sure of that right now. I have a feeling what their plan with him is just use him as off-ball for a couple of years, and then my suspicion is Brian Burns at some point will not be on this football team.
Yeah.
Either they will trade him or they'll just let him finish out his contract. And he has no guaranteed money after this year, so they're going to have to deal with it. Like, they can't just let this Dex thing happen again, But I don't see a world where they took Arvell Reese, not considering that possibility that he might be the Brian Burns replacement in 2 to 3 years. I do suspect that's where this is likely headed. And I think his development path is going to look very similar to Micah Parsons, except just slower. I don't think they'll move him from off-ball linebacker to edge year 1 unless he's just blowing things up right away. And you're like, wow, we have to do this. But I think they will eventually do it. I think it's going to be. I think there's a world where the long-term edge rushers for the Giants are primarily Abdul Carter and Arvell Reese, and eventually Brian Burns gets phased out of the team a few years from now. I suspect that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I was basically going to say the same thing, Sal. Like, where people forget that, like, Micah Parsons was not drafted to be an edge rusher. He wasn't really used aggressively as an edge rusher year 1 until they just couldn't keep him from playing edge rusher. So he's so damn good. And what I would say is, like, having a plan is nice and all, but if Arvell Reese, if you want to play edge rusher, hone your craft and be a great edge rusher, and they will not be able to keep you at off-ball linebacker if you're that good of an edge rusher.
So what if he's playing off-ball all year, but he's doing Micah things? Like Micah did halfway through his season. They were like, this is our best player. We got to move him to edge full-time the last half of the season. If he's clearly your best edge or your second best edge, you're going to start doing that more and more. And guess what? Then you might have to speed up the decision on Brian Burns for next year. Like, seriously, like that does change the timeline. So I'm not saying it can't happen next year or even this year. I'm just saying I think they're going to try very hard to keep him at off-ball linebacker this year. I don't see a world where they're going to try to force him into the edge.
Yeah.
This year, I'd be a little bit surprised if they did that.
You know, and I do wonder, like, if this legitimately is something that he wants, right?
Yeah.
And the Giants' plan right now is like, all right, you're going to be in the linebacker room. You're not going to be in the edge rusher room. You're not going to be in the outside linebacker. You're going to be in the interior linebacker room. Like, I'm even wondering, like, this camp, like, how are they going to divide his time? What room is he primarily going to be in? And I think it's going to be that interior linebacker room.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is something that he genuinely wants, like, instead of capping out at, you know, maybe by the time that his 4-year deal is up, right, you know, with that 5th year option, you know, Fred Warner is getting $21 million right now. Maybe the market is reset to a little closer to 25 to 30, right? Probably a little closer to 30, knowing how fast the NFL is exploding. What did Will Anderson just get? 50?
50. Yeah.
So, I mean, the interior linebacker market will get nowhere close to the market the edge rusher is even at right now. So if that's something that you want, then it's going to have to be, you know, start to develop some moves, start to develop some sort of pedigree, kind of like, dude, like you got to work at it on your own time too.
Yep.
And I don't think that's not a bad thing. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's a lot of the player development happens. A lot of it happens in the offseason. Yeah. Coaches, you know, they can do some, but that's where these guys really develop.
Yeah. Want to move on to Mauigoa.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to move over to guard. What traits did he showcase the most that you think that he can make a successful transition over to guard?
We just graded him at both tackle and guard last night. Do you have those grades up, Monty? I don't know if you have them, but
yeah, I do.
You know, but he was our OT1. You know, when we did our OT episode, we were not expecting to be OT1. We just, you know, we follow we have like a very set grading system that we use, and he just scored the highest whenever we did the tackle ranking. I don't remember when that was. I think it was earlier in the year. But I remember commenting like, this guy looks like he's a run great. He's just a road grading run mauler, and I think that stands out on his tape. He is really strong, man. His core strength. He's 20. He's another one. He's 20 years old.
Yeah, nuts.
These
guys.
He's an immovable object. He really is. Like, he gets his hands on you, you're not going anywhere. You're just, well, you are. You're going backwards, and you're going into the ground. He's a finisher too. So he has that mauler mentality. I find that he's pretty balanced. I think he's the right size, and his body length and his body proportions are very good for guard. He's got a good strong base. He's not overly like top heavy. We thought his arm length was going to come in short. It didn't. Came in like pretty standard for tackles, but his hand usage is really solid for guards. I thought, like, he's very consistent. I get his hands inside, driving guys backwards. He's quick off the snap. And like I said, when he's balanced, he gets his hands into you and it's over. Like, he's driving you backwards, and he's very athletic for a guy his size. You see him on tape flying 10, 15 yards down the field and destroying secondary league defenders. So I think he's going to be a perfect guard. Honestly, I don't see too many scenarios in which he fails. I heard John Feliciano talking about this with Jordan Raynon, and he said that the only thing I see him potentially struggling with would be maybe the speed at which you have to engage at guard versus tackle, where you have that extra 2 to 3 steps. But honestly, there were plenty of reps at Miami where he was engaged immediately, and I saw no problems with it. So I don't see much of an issue with him transitioning.
Yeah, I'm looking at our grade, Sal, and I mean, for tackle too, our number one trait is his play strength and anchor. We gave him an elite grade there, both at tackle and guard. The one that we kind of knocked up here and moved up a little bit here was the pass blocking. We were projecting. We weren't exactly sure, you know, what he'll be at guard. We had him at a very high level at tackle, but you know, we felt that some of his minor weaknesses, honestly, I do think he could play tackle in the NFL, and I felt very strongly about that. But I think he could be an elite pass blocker at the guard position. I think some of his limitations with some of his length and some of his footwork, not as bad, it's great, but I think that inside it would be elite.
Yeah, so I mean, there were two things that, Sal, you mentioned that really stick out to me, like the two things as to why I feel like he can make the transition. It is that core strength, and the ability to, I feel like on the inside when space is going to be compacted, right? the ability to deal with those bigger guys. And there's going to be not going to be guys that are going to be getting these running starts coming at you. So he's going to be able to kind of sink his hips in that good knee bend and having that core strength to kind of keep him there. And his hands at tackle, like independent hands. And I feel like he would treat each rep and each guy very, very differently. And he would change things up and not just copy and paste the same old where pass rushers can kind of pick up on that. I think for a 20-year-old, hand placement and hand technique is very, very advanced. And I think those two reasons, if you can bring that mentality over to guard with the overall just natural strength that you have to begin with, that's why I think the transition to guard will not just can be, I think it will be a successful one.
It's funny because I feel like we got some luxuries with both these guys where, most teams are putting Arvell Reese as one of their top edge rushers, and we get to, use him as an off-ball linebacker. And I think most teams are taking Mauigoa and putting him out at tackle because they're going to need him there. And we get to play him at guard. So for a team that is, has a lot of weaknesses, we got pretty lucky with some of the luxuries we get to work here with these guys.
Yeah. Was that the, like, when they get to 10, right? Downs is still on the board. What are you guys kind of thinking and sitting and wanting there, and how have maybe your kind of thoughts changed since then as I'm getting a good laugh at us, Sal?
We wanted Downs. I wanted Downs.
Yeah.
It's fun. I asked Sal this exact same question last night, and I was like, we've done the work. We've really got to think about the idea of having an offensive line. Has it changed anything? I think we're both really excited about Mauigoa, but I think we both were like, man, to have get that green dot player, the guy, like a culture changer. I think Arvell Reese is awesome, and I think he was the right pick at 5. But man, with Dexter Lawrence gone, having both those guys to reinvent the defense, that's the way I would have gone. But again, I said it on draft day, I'm never can complain about trying to fix the offensive line. It's the most important thing, and it's something that we've neglected for so long. I'm thrilled with the pick. I have no issue with it, but I would have gone Caleb Downs.
And it worked out though. Like if you think so part of the reason I think in real time you're thinking you want Downs other than just love him as a player is that you think you can get a quality interior lineman at 37. Right. Mm-hmm. You look at all the draft boards, the consensus, and you think it. I remember when I did our most recent review and we did our top 100. And I told Monte, I'm like, I don't like Pregnon at all. I like Rutledge. He's my guy. He's my interior offensive lineman too. And I think I have him just a little bit above Besantis, but I really like him. I think he's going to be good. A few days later, you started hearing rumblings about like maybe he's going to go in the first. Teams like his versatility. He might be able to play center. And then look what happened. He won in the first, right? I mean, in fact, the Texans traded up to get him because they were pretty confident the Bills were going to take him. And then the Bills traded down 3 times when they didn't get him. Yeah. And then Besantis, I think, went before we picked at 37, right? So both of them were off the board. So, what if we?
Oh, and I would have lost my shit.
Right? Imagine that world.
My
right?
shit.
So think about
if they went, 2 defensive play, which I would have loved. I would have loved Caleb Downs. I would have loved Arvell Reese.
And then there's no value at the offensive line there at 37.
And then Daniel Falele is your starting right guard.
Well, and then on top of that, like, are you really gonna? When we got to day 2, a bunch of us were talking about it. I'm like, people wanted the defensive tackle, and I was looking at the board, and I was like, I don't know, guys. I was like, defensive tackle is important, but we have 3 first-round corners staring us in the face here. And we absolutely need corners. And these are really good corners. There's 3 of them. If they like one of them, I think they're going to be more valuable than the D tackles here. We can get to that. But, again, we would have not had one of those guards. So in the end, it worked out well. The Giants did the right thing. I think they made the right call. And they said, we're going to we're not going to screw around. We're going to fix our offensive line right here. Give Joe Schoen credit. I give him a lot of crap, but for whatever it's worth, whatever part of that decision was him, I give them all collectively a lot of credit. That was the right call to take Mauigoa right there.
All right, before we keep going with Monte and Sal, I got to talk about the Fanatics Sportsbook because, of course, the football season, it's no longer happening, but there's tons of other sports and things to get in on the action with. all year long with the Fanatics Sportsbook. Every time you place a bet, you're earning FanCash, up to 10% back on your bets, win or lose. And unlike points that expire, FanCash is the true currency of sport. You can use it on official team gear and collectibles on Fanatics.com. Your next bet or profit boost, and even exclusive experiences across the world of Fanatics. Plus, Fanatics is the home of fair play injury protection. If your player goes down with an injury in the first half, your bet gets refunded. It's all. And if it's part of a parlay, that leg is voided and the rest of your parlay plays on. Bet, earn, and get more out of every game with the Fanatics Sportsbook, because winning hits different here. Thank you to Fanatics. Now back to the show. And good on you for bringing the corner. Sal, you and I are we're like this right now.
Yeah.
Like simpatico right now. This is a hard, difficult question, and I'm giving you guys the hard, difficult questions here. Do you think Colton Hood is ready to be a starter?
Yeah, I think he could do it. He's gonna work through some stuff for sure. I trust Denard Wilson to work with him. I think that's something that really excites me about taking Colton Hood, is that you have a guy who's been known for working with D-backs. I think in his defense he could play. He's gonna, like any rookie though, he's gonna work through some struggles.
Yeah, I think he's a starter. I mean, so he got thrust into the role of being essentially a CB1 with McCoy hurt this year, and he went up against some pretty good competition. He held his own on the outside. I mean, you watch his tape. He's for a kid who's only 21 years old, really playing his first year at that level. I mean, the stuff he showed on tape was very impressive. Now he wasn't our favorite corner at that spot. We've always been Avion Terrell guys. Mm-hmm. People made, I think, too much about his that pro day 40 of 4.6. I mean, he's a track athlete. He ran a sub 4.4 in college, so he's not like slow at all. But
he pulled his hamstring.
He pulled his hamstring before he ran the pro day thing. Anyway, all that said, Hood was a guy that I think we knew was going to be right up Denard Wilson's alley, like a physical, big, mean, tough press corner, good in run support, does all the things that Wilson talks about being important for his defense from his DB. So I wasn't surprised he was the pick. I do think he can start right away. I think he can start on the outside or the nickel. The way I look at this, Justin, is I think they look at this cornerback room as a room, and there's like 5 guys competing for 3 spots, essentially. And I say 5 only to give a little bit of credit to the fact that they keep bringing up Deonte Banks' name and they don't ignore him. I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, he was a first-round pick, and he was Colton Hood before Colton Hood, if he had any ball skills, right? Basically, they're similar prototypes, but let's just say, for argument's sake, you've got a Debo who, he's getting paid a lot of money, but he's not coming off a great year. Yeah. Phillips, who's I think they'll like Phillips, but he has his issues in coverage at nickel. And then you've got Newsome, who is a former first-round pick, but certainly not a guaranteed starter on a 1-year deal. You've got Hood, and then they'll probably let guys like Banks at least compete. Even if you take Banks out of it, that's 4 guys competing for 3 spots. And the way I look at it is the best 3 guys are going to take the jobs. And I wouldn't be surprised if Newsome is looking like the best nickel corner, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if Hood is starting on the outside and Newsome takes away Drew Phillips' job. If Newsome looks like he's the best outside corner and Hood looks like a better nickel corner, I wouldn't be surprised if Phillips loses his job to Hood. I'm not trying to take away Phillips' job, but what I'm saying is I don't think anybody's short of anything here. And I think he is a starter. I think he's going to outcompete at least 2 of those guys.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think where my brain and my mindset has been, it's been thinking of Newsome and Hood going on the outside. Now, I can imagine that Greg Newsome signing here, and Greg Newsome, after having the last couple years of going in and out at nickel corner, and that's not really what he loves to do. I'm sure that when coach tells him to go line up at slot corner during week 1, week 2 at training camp, it may, or even OTAs, it may not be like, oh shit, here we go again. But at the same time, putting the 3 best players on the field, which honestly, like if you were to, I love Drew Phillips, but you put a gun to my head. I can see the 3 best corners on the team for the 2026 Giants being Paulson Adebo, Greg Newsome, and Colton Hood. And it's just a matter of, do you put Hood in the slot or Newsome in the slot? So I can see that being a world that we live in.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's short of anything. And I think that's, to your point, can he start? Yeah, I think he can start. Remember, I think Adebo was a 3rd-round pick, but he's been a starter in the NFL forever. He's got big money. Newsome, former 1st-round pick. Colton Hood, 1st-round pick. Well, he's a 2nd-round pick, but he was a 1st-round graded player. And, and obviously Deonte Banks, I'm going to bring him up again, 1st-round pick. Whatever he is, they'll take a look at him. And then you've got, 3rd-round pick Drew Phillips. he's been a starter. Has he been a starter because he was so good? And I don't think he's a bad player, but was he a starter because we had nobody else to play nickel for the last couple of years, and there's no assurance of anything. So bottom line is I think competition is good and they're going to all compete for those jobs. I do think Hood can hold a position. Technically, we talked about Hood's tape. There are some things, we love his tape, but there are things that he does that could get exposed a little bit at the next level. I think he's very patient and lets receivers declare their route before he starts breaking, and he trusts his speed. And he likes to give a little bit of room, especially when he's playing off. And then he trusts his ability to click and close. But some of those are close calls. And in the NFL, are some of these receivers going to be too quick, right? And are they going to just beat him to the inside when he gives inside leverage so easily? Yep. That's something we talked about. He's going to have to clean that up a little bit at the next level.
Cornerback's just one that you never know how it's going to work out. It scares the hell out of me taking cornerbacks every single year because, it's a tough position to evaluate and project. But again, I like the traits there. I think the arrow's pointing up on a lot of his traits and abilities. I think, there's some stuff that he's worked on, but you can see where it's going. And then again, I'll keep saying it. Denard Wilson I'm happy to have him here to help develop them.
So I want to treat these things as two separate entities for right now.
Okay.
The trade up for Malachi Fields, and then we'll get to the player, Malachi Fields. So the trade up happens, and began a whole debate of even NIL comes in and transfers and blah, 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 and comp picks, and oh my God, okay. The Giants gave up a lot of picks. They gave up 3 different picks, technically 2 additional ones, right? Because they gave up the 105 to go up to 74, and then they gave up those 2 extra picks to go up and get Malachi Fields. So let's talk about the trade up first and your overall philosophies and thinking around that, and then we'll get to Malachi Fields as a player.
Go ahead, man.
All right. I mean, look, I hate it. I hated the trade. I saw it come through.
Threw him the alley-oop. I was just waiting for him to dunk it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. To me, when you look at it, you look what's the chance of pick 74 hitting and what's the chance of pick 109 hitting, and you check the hit rates of those positions and they're practically the same. And now you're giving up your 5th round pick and you're giving up a 4th round pick next year in what's supposed to be a very good draft class. And it's, to me, I'm just like, I would rather have the 3 darts to throw and take my chance that I'm going to find a starter from one of those 3 than putting all my eggs in one basket. And, if, we can get into Malachi Fields, the player, but I will say when you make that trade, I want somebody who I feel very, very safe in their floor in. And, is Malachi Fields that? We'll talk about it, but I did not like the trade whatsoever. And I thought for the record, I thought the NIL argument was total nonsense. You may send 50 players in the next class, but you're taking 50 players from the previous class. It's just rolling over with more people. I thought the whole argument was total nonsense.
Yeah, I hated the trade. I looked it up. The historical hit rate of pick 74 is something like, I forgot what the number was, like 25 to 30%. And the defining hit as a 4+ year starter.
Yeah.
And the historical hit rate of pick 105 is 25 to 30%. And the historical hit rate of pick 145 is probably more like, 15 to 20%. So you're basically if you think about it, it makes sense, right? When you get to day 2, the comp picks and early day 3, that batch of players are typically all kind of the same. And you start seeing a lot of funny players getting picked that don't match the whole conversation about consensus boards, because they're all lumped together and teams have their preferences, right? They have their internal metrics, their preferences. Kyle Shanahan talked about it, their own health data. So guys go all over the place in that range, and they're largely in the same bucket, right? So the hit, it's not surprising that the hit rates are about the same. Giving up the additional capital there was a lot. And I think on a team that has traditionally given up a lot of draft picks, Joe Schoen has shown no affinity for keeping his picks. And then we're looking at our team in the middle of the year and, well, why don't we have an extra D lineman? Why don't we have an extra corner? Why don't we have an extra offensive lineman? Because we don't take chances on the lottery picks, right? We don't take the swings. and we're always looking in free agency for guys who are kind of over the hill. I hated the trade. Now, all that said, Malachi Fields consensus, if you use guys like Brugler, if you use guys like Jeremiah, was somewhere in the 50 to 60 range on the big board.
Yep.
It's not like he was a reach at 74. So to be fair, like that's not the issue. It was just the trade up. And then you have to talk about the prospect, right?
Yep,
and I think that's important. The two are separate. And you can just like the trade up and see the vision with the prospect. And I got into like a whole discussion on the timeline today, and I've had this debate with others where I hated the trade, and I generally don't like players of this profile. I don't like guys without a route tree. Yep. I don't like guys who don't separate. We don't like guys like that because you're an analytics and advanced stats guy. The data shows you now that the kids coming out of college that don't have a route tree, that don't separate, typically do not make it. That's just the reality. The ones who make it are the guys who can separate, right? And the guys who have a route tree, more than just, go deep post and curl. The guys who actually have a pretty advanced route tree and actually separate and have good separation numbers, they end up being productive and they last. And it's just doesn't mean that he can't. It's just that the analytics and the advanced stats are calling him an outlier. So his game is just, he's really big. He's really strong. He's an outstanding blocker. He's a big boundary X. He does catch everything for the most part that's thrown his way. He doesn't drop things. I think he's a good contested catch receiver on the deep plane. I think the numbers are about 50% on deep balls, which is actually very impressive. That's really high on deep balls. Like, typically you expect numbers like 30%, in that range, 30 to 40. He's about 50 on the deep balls. His lowest contested catch numbers are actually in the short area, which is interesting. Right? Was he like 25, 30% there?
Yeah, he's like 30% in the short area and 50% in the intermediate.
But a lot of that short area stuff is like when he's trying to actually, he's trying to run a route, and he has no explosiveness at the snap, and it gets closed off really quick. So when he's vertical playing and he's high pointing and he's using his size, he's great. Anything else, he's limited. The way I described him is are we allowed to swear on your pod? Yeah, he's the fuck it, he's down there somewhere guy, right? Like that's, like that. Like Jackson Dart will use that guy, right? But especially on money downs, third down. He's not Daniel Jones. You don't have to have 3 yards of separation for him to want to throw you the ball. Dart's going to give you a chance. He threw the ball to freaking Wan'Dale Robinson in the middle of traffic a bunch of times on money downs. And I have a feeling he'll get very comfortable with Fields. I think he's a good fit with him. Where on money downs, he's going to know, hey, I don't care how many people are down there. This guy's 6'5", and he's going to go up and get it. I'm just tossing this sucker in the air and letting him get it. And I do think he's going to get a lot of his production there. So I can see the vision. I don't like the profile. I think it's an outlier bet, and I hated the trade.
Yeah. To what Sal said, I can see the vision for how the Giants want to use him. Like I said, I see the fit with Jackson Dart. I see him as a great run blocker. I think that's one of his best traits. I think he can be a phenomenal run blocker for a team that wants to run the ball. But as projecting a starter, which I think where you're taking him, what you gave up to get him, I think that's what you're asking for. You're asking for a starter, not just a guy who can fill a role to help out with your team. And to me, that's where I get concerned. I see a lot of this guy's a contested catch guy. I would call him more of a spectacular catch guy. Like he makes those big catches downfield, but any contested catch in like the short and intermediate area, he's not coming down with it as often as other guys. And you look at, again, just getting into the advanced analytics, I won't get completely into it, but like some numbers like his like contested target rate, or like I think it was yards per team pass attempt. There's some stuff out there, and I went through and I did all of the Matt Waldman reception perception stuff, and he has a database of all the prospects he did, and he did 18 of them, and I basically graded them on all the ones where you get 1 point if you're in first place, and you get 18 points and you're in last place, and kind of combine them all together and through all the tables. And Malachi Fields was dead last coming out of that. And you listen to Matt Waldman talk about him. He's like, look, I like the kid. He's fun to watch. But I'm just like saying he's an outlier. Like the chances he ends up being a good player is not high. And to me, when that's where I really have the frustration with trading up is, if you're going to trade up, you better not be doing it on an outlier. I mean, like, look, if you want to sit there at 105 and tell me you like him and I don't, that's fine. I don't know fucking everything, and analytics can't tell you everything. Like, there's a lot of smart guys who like Malachi Fields, and that's fine, but you also have to take into account that he is an outlier, and that's trading 3 picks on that is where you lose me.
Can we talk about his block just for a second? Did you go back and watch his tape after I discussed the issue with his blocks last night? Do you remember what I said?
I didn't go back, but I knew exactly what you're talking about when you started.
So I don't know if you noticed you watched him by now, right, Justin?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, he gets kudos for being a great blocker. Nick talks about it. Nick Filato, outstanding blocker. I picked up on something, and I don't know if it was just sample size of what I watched, but I feel like he gives away the play when he's going to block. If you watch him very carefully on running plays where he's blocking, he has a very, very specific like stutter start and slow movement into the route where you can just guess this is going to be a run. And he's going to slow down. He's going to locate his target on the second level, and then he's going to go drive into them. When he's actually trying to move quickly and explode off the snap, it's never a run. And if you guys get a chance, go back and watch him. I don't know if it was just I'm
big into tells. I love tells.
It felt like a tell. I mean, I saw it so many times. I'm like, am I just seeing this in these few games, or is this really a thing? Nobody talked about it, but I just kind of noticed it because I was trying to pay attention to his blocking, and I was like, oh, I'm seeing this. So I would pay attention if you guys get a chance, go back and watch him. And if anybody listening to this is watching his film, I'd like to hear their feedback on it. It's just maybe I'm just overdoing it, but again, he's not like this nuanced route runner. He doesn't have a lot of explosiveness. His game is going to be down the sideline, running, boundary type routes and going up and getting the football and blocking. That's what his game is. And so he's got to do that really well at a very high level for it to be worthy of what the Giants invested into him.
Yeah, I'm with you guys for the majority of what you said. And, I've this is my least favorite pick. And it is the trade up that is also kind of it's my least favorite pick if they didn't trade up, considering where they kind of were in that general area, in that general part of the draft. And also because of the player profile that I typically don't like. I'm with you guys, like the bigger contested guys. I see 6'4" and I see 220. And sometimes even before I start watching, I kind of eye roll a little bit. And it's like, oh boy, here we go. Now there's exceptions. Like Jaden Higgins was my guy last year. That was the exception. Like, oh my God, like this is why, because of how crafty he is, that's why it could work. For me this year, I know he went a little bit later. And I know the consensus was a wide range on him. I think Elijah Surratt's going to be a really good NFL player, that he's crafty and he can win, and it's not sexy. But you want to know what? Elijah Surratt was a contested catch guy that actually was really freaking good at contested catches too. It wasn't just a big guy that couldn't separate that you say is a contested catch guy. Elijah Surratt was actually really freaking good at contested catches too, and he was crafty on third down, and he was really good inside the red zone and productive inside the red zone. Neither here nor there.
What was that? 115.
And he was there with our fourth round pick.
He went pick 115.
Yeah.
I think he's a better receiver than Fields. I have no problem saying that. I think he was more productive. Like the things like yards per route run, the consistency of his route running, the big game moments. You saw him in big games come up big for Indiana, like on tough third downs. Like he did all the stuff we're hoping Fields can do and translate at the NFL level. He did it. I'm with you. I would have just sat, and if you really needed a receiver, I would have been very comfortable. Now, you don't know who's going to fall where and who's going to go where, but I think there were so many receivers available at 105 that they should have known that they were going to have a lot of options. That, in my opinion.
I put out a tweet like 3 picks before him. I'm like, wow, there's so many receivers so left on the board. And then then one went and then we traded out.
Yeah.
And I think they even sensed the run. And again, this is where I kind of have to give credit for their process, right? Where they saw that there was going to be a run of wide receivers coming, and they got the one that they wanted. Even if it wasn't like, hey, you could have waited around 105 and then you would have gotten a guy like Elijah Surratt, who is somewhat comparable size-wise to I think Fields is probably a little bit more athletic than Surratt. But neither here nor there. And here's what a lot of people are probably sitting home and yelling at us when talking about Fields. Well, the quarterback, you're talking about Elijah Surratt. He had Fernando Mendoza throwing on the ball. Malachi Fields had bad quarterback play relatively for Virginia, and then even 2025 bad quarterback play at Notre Dame. And even something that I look at too, 37% of his targets this year were from deep. And I think it is really, really hard to build a profile where you can show any kind of consistency separating when you're targeted so often from 20 plus yards down the field. And I think 60% of his routes this year were posts, goes, and stops. That's what it was. Now, is that his route running tree at Notre Dame because that's what he feel like that he could do? Or is that just what the system was and what the quarterback was and where everything was at? He went down to the Senior Bowl, and this is what I'm holding on to, fellas. My couple reps that I really locked into Malachi Fields, and I made a voiceover over him, and I'm really damn proud of myself that I had that voiceover to repost after the draft. Because again, I watched him and I prepped and I got it. Like, I have a spreadsheet and I had consensus board rankings and all that kind of stuff. And my notes were not very fun because his stats were not good. And then I saw the size and I'm like, okay, Malachi Fields, I probably won't talk about you again. That's what I thought at the time when preparing for the Senior Bowl. But then I go down there and he's targeted in the short part of the field. He's targeted in the intermediate part of the field. And he started to get a little crafty. And I think, and for the way to Malachi Fields, for him to win in the NFL, he is never going to be a natural separator. He is never going to be good at it. But what he needs to do is get subtle separation and be a little crafty. And I actually was watching Plax for a video that came out on JM Football. The video came out today, Thursday at the time that we're recording this, on Plaxico Burress's 2011 season with the Jets when he was age 34. And he was still able to, he was 2 years in prison, guys, and 34 years old. He was still able to find subtle separation by just being a crafty football player with utilizing his hands, timing when he's going to plant his foot in the ground at the stem of the route, timing it, and then getting subtle separation that way. That is what Malachi Fields is going to have to lock into as a pro. Him and Chad Hall are going to have to get in lockstep with each other when it comes to those kind of couple, like hand usage and just being a crafty route runner overall. That is his path to being a wide receiver too. Like, he mentioned like Mike Evans, he mentioned like Julio Jones, like I watched these guys growing up and I want to emulate my game after those guys. Well, that's what those guys do. They're big and they're able to get that subtle separation. And I think that is his inevitable path to being a decent player in the NFL, or else he's just going to be another just big guy that can go up and get it every once in a while.
One thing I'll say is I think the one path I could see him being successful, and it was one thing Matt Harmon. Who was Harmon? I said Waldman before. I see. Well, now I knew I messed up.
Change everything to Matt Harmon. Everything you said before.
Yeah, Matt Harmon. Everything I've been saying is Matt Harmon. Matt Harmon. I was listening to him talk about it, and he was saying basically all these guys who did work out that kind of had this profiles. Essentially, those guys were used exclusively on the outside. You basically like you talked about, Justin, really just didn't run a lot of routes. They used them specific way. And then they got moved inside and they got used as a big slot, and then they found their way in the NFL. I don't necessarily think that's the best way to use Malachi Fields, but I do think if he was to prove me wrong, I think that's the spot where I could see him being most successful as an NFL player personally.
Yeah, I think if he can understand, I think that would really understand. Like, this is what I think Hodgins does really well. If you could start understanding zone coverage and where to sit and where to really help out your quarterback, if he can really start to understand that, then I think like the big slot role can be really, really productive. Like, you even put him there on third down. And I mean, it would be a really big security blanket. But if he starts to get an understanding of how to get open even against zone, and not just, hey, the man-to-man guys where you're not going to be all that fast. It's not going to be quick and you're not going to be agile. So you're not going to get that yards per route run and that separation against man. If you can find a way to get open against zone, then that's also a different conversation on how Malachi Fields can, I think, increase his ceiling as a player and his floor, really.
Yeah, I think he's actually okay in zone. I do think he does a decent job of finding spots in zone to get the ball. So I actually think he'd be okay in that. I really do. I think he'll find a way to be productive there. Yeah, again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think there are a lot of analytical things that suggest that, we should be tempered in our expectation for him this year,
Yeah.
And I'm going to defend him now. Like, I didn't like the pick. I hated the trade. But I feel like a lot of people who are really excited about him are going to turn on the kid when they look at his bottom line production at the end of the year, if it looks like what I think it's headed for, right? I have a hard time seeing him being more than like a 500-yard guy this year. I think, what is he? I mean, assuming Darius Slayton is healthy by the beginning of the year, which he should be, and assuming Malik Neighbors plays a full year, which hopefully he does, where is he on the pecking order in terms of guys who, in terms of target share, and target, what is he, like number 5, right? I mean, you've got Malik 1, probably likely 2, and then you can argue it's either Scadaboo or Slayton 3 and 4, and then he's
Theo
probably
in there.
Yeah, he might be behind Theo. He's probably competing with Theo Johnson at that point, right? He's in that range, and so if he gives you in my mind, as a rookie, if he gives us about 500 yards and he gives us some big third down plays and touchdowns, I would call that a successful year. Forget about the pick and the trade. That's all. But I think a lot of people are going to look at the way the Giants approach the trade and the assets they gave up to get him, and they're going to want to see T. Higgins right off the bat. And I think that's asking for a lot. And I don't think we're going to get anywhere near that.
How does 23 catches on 40 targets, 373 yards, and 21, not 21, and 16.2 yards per reception sound?
It sounds very median to me, honestly.
Do you know whose rookie year that was?
Yeah. 373. Are you gonna say Plaxico Burress?
that was the 73rd pick of the 2023 NFL draft, Jalen Hyatt.
Oh, Jalen Hyatt. Yikes. I thought we were going Ramses Barden here.
Well, and Jalen Hyatt had like a third of those yards in like the second half of the Arizona game, right? So like it was something like crazy. But yeah, I mean, the parallels are hard to deny. He's a very different prototype physically, obviously. Yeah. But, no route tree.
But limiting, limited and limiting are two words that do come to mind for both of them.
Doesn't have a route tree. Is it because he doesn't know how to routes, or was it the offense? It's the same conversation we had 3 years ago, and it's a little, it's a little PTSD inducing. So I hope he gets to about 500 yards and just make some big plays for us consistently throughout the year. If he does that, I'm very happy, and that's how I'm looking at him. And I'll defend the kid if he can come anywhere near that.
All right, last one for you guys. I don't want to ignore the other day 3 guys that we had. No, all of them, all the day 3 guys, because we obviously traded back up into day 2. I don't want to ignore the day 3 guys, so we'll just put kind of all 3 of them in the bucket. Is Jack Kelly the clear favorite for everybody?
Favorite?
Oh, okay, I like it. So what do we got? Who was the favorite?
For me, it was Bobby Jamison Travis. I was a big fan watching him. I don't think he has much of pass rush chops, really much anything to offer there. There can be a long developing pass playing. He's just kind of be stuck at the line of scrimmage. But as far as run defense goes, I thought he got a lot of push. I thought he came off low with a good base. I thought he had good leverage. I thought he shedded very well. I thought he was a great tackler. I thought anytime that he could get his hands on you, that he would get you down. You looked at his run stop rate was right between Caden McDonald and Lee Hunter. Well, yeah, it's pretty impressive. I think he's a guy who can be a contributor this year. And if we were going to stack the 3 guys we took in the 6th round and say who do I think is most likely to become a starter in the NFL one day, to me, Bobby Jamison Travis would be my pick.
It's close. I really liked what I saw, and admittedly, I really had no idea who Bobby Jamison Travis was. Before the draft, and
they had a 30 visit with him. Can we make a? Did they? We got to make.
I didn't realize
that. Think they did. I think they did. I may be wrong. Because you bet your ass, like all of us, if we knew that they had a 30 visit with him, then we would have definitely known who he was. Yeah. Because that's just what this regime with Joe Schoen does, which I will say from a content perspective, I don't mind because it helps me prepare for the NFL draft a lot and very well. So yeah, you bet your ass that if we knew it, that we would have definitely known who he was, and then we would have celebrated the damn pick.
We went back and watched his tape after Saturday night. Actually, I started watching it, and actually, a shout out to a loyal viewer of ours who likes arguing with us on the timeline. Alex, good guy, but he's a good dude. He's very knowledgeable about college football, and he kind of sent me a message during the draft. He's like, this guy is like the second best run defender in the class when it comes to run stop efficiency, behind only Caden McDonald, and ahead of Lee Hunter. So I started calling him Kirkland McDonald, and I started watching his tape. I'm like, he's really good. I mean, uses his length, big guy. Occupies two gaps. He's perfect for just run stuffing, right? He knows what he's got to do. He's out there to stop the run, and he finds a way to plug up the gaps. And he's pretty quick off the snap. I was actually surprised by how quick he gets off the snap and makes contact, and he can actually just engage and just disengage and then stop the run. So I liked him a lot. He was not my favorite, though. To your question, it was actually J.C. Davis. Another guy we had a 30 on. I'm a big J.C. Davis guy. Monty knows I was obsessing about him in the weeks before the draft. I liked him beforehand. Then I saw we had a 30. I was super pumped. I'm like, oh, we're going to take this guy. I liked his tape a lot. He was a JUCO guy who went and worked his way up, got to the Big Ten at Illinois, started at left tackle. I think he was all Big Ten this year. First team all Big Ten, and held his own at left tackle, did a good job. Where he struggled, he got his lunch taken from him by speed rushers around the edge. I don't think he has the lateral agility to hold up a tackle at the next level. But man, I saw guard all over this guy's tape. Watching him, this guy's going to be a good guard. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like I know the core strength thing some people bring up. I didn't see it as much of an issue when he played, those internal reps. I liked his core strength. His hand usage is more erratic than a guy, obviously, like Mauigoa, who's a first rounder. He's more like he gets his hands on the shoulders. You could see it being a holding call. I saw it more when he was playing tackle and on the outside. When he was actually driving inside and taking away guards, I thought he was taking away defensive linemen. And I just thought he was really strong, very athletic, climbed, can be a zone blocker. I just thought he's really good as a developmental guard. What I really, really liked about the guy was, honestly, beyond those things, if you watch his tape carefully, he's outstanding at diagnosing what the defense is showing him. And he picks up stunts so well, just consistently, kind of calling out this guy's stunting, this guy's twisting, handing guys off, picking up stuff. I mean, he was fantastic. He protected his quarterback really well. So very excited about him. And I was happy to hear John Harbaugh say we're going to use him as a swing guard, I believe was the term he used, right? Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like they're going to develop him as a guard. There was some tackle-like stuff mixed in, but I'm pretty sure they're going to use him as a guard and develop him. And I wouldn't be surprised, Justin, if he is the plan going into next year to replace John Runyon. I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of their idea of like, this is our plan. Obviously, you get better players come along, you just take them. Yeah. But I think they're thinking of this guy possibly as a guy that you can develop and say, we have an internal solution built into left guard. That's how I think they view it. And the Ravens have done that, right? They've drafted guys on day 3, developed them, and then they're starters like a year or two later. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I love his mentality too. He's big. I was very adamant in the pre-draft process, and we wound up taking him in a mock draft. So I was mm-hmm. I had one pick right in one of our mock drafts before, and it was J.C. Davis with this 192nd pick. So I was adamant that I don't think he has the foot speed to be a tackle. So I was very glad to see that he's going to go to guard, and that's where he was down in Mobile too. So I'm very, very confident that he can be a good run blocker if he does develop that way in the NFL. So
I actually preferred his pass blocking, for the record.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I thought I saw more upside there personally.
We disagreed there, but either way, we saw a good player on the interior.
Jack Kelly plays with his hair on fire, and he's super fun, and he's and he's just I will say, like, the one thing that I tried to, I don't want to be the poo-pooer of, because everybody on, I will say, Twitter, social media, he's like the player that
he's gonna be a fan favorite.
Just gets likes right now. Like it's nuts. One of the biggest tweets from the page from the draft season was just me embedding a Big 12 video of Jack Kelly highlights, because I'm like, I need to post something, and I don't really know who this is. So here you go. He has a shit ton of production, and it's crazy. It is a lot of it schemed up. Like, it's so fun. Like, he has the tackle for loss, he has the sacks, and the fact that that's available on day 3, it's so damn impressive. So you don't think twice about it, and especially it feels like he does kind of have like this special teams kind of pedigree.
Yeah.
You could see that kind of transitioning, a guy that plays with his hair on fire like that, but so much of it was schemed up.
Yeah. I think they might have fun with him, use him in certain packages, but I would not trust him out there as a linebacker. I don't think he's a good tackler. I don't really think he has great instincts. But he's hell of a fun player when you're blitzing him and bringing him after the quarterback.
Yeah, he's a bad linebacker. I mean, I want to be honest. He's a very bad linebacker. But I think hair on fire guys are fun, and as a special teamer, you can just see him like week 1 opening kickoff. He's the guy flying down the field and just blowing somebody up off on the return, right? And fans fall in love with that guy, and that's okay. Like if that's your backup linebacker, and he's a special teams ace for you, that's awesome. Like that's fine. I think that's exactly what they view him as. I would be upset if I had to see him take significant reps at linebacker. I don't think he's good, and I think he'd be a liability on the defense. I would have preferred to take somebody else there. I think the guy that I regretted, I winced in pain when he got taken with like 5 picks left in the draft was like Rashawn Benny from Michigan. He was a guy that I know we had a 30 visit with, and Michigan guy, the connection to the Harbaughs. I thought a very good run stuffing defensive lineman, and I really wanted to double up there, and I thought there was value. And then it's like, oh, he might make the UDFA land. He didn't. He went to the Ravens. But so I would have probably rather doubled up on a guy who I thought would have been depth at the D-line position. But I understand why Harbaugh would say, I need a guy who can just be a special teams ace for me here. And that's fine with the last pick of the draft. I think that's totally okay.
Yeah, I like Jack Kelly. I'm cool with drafting him. I just also he's a 6th round pick. Like that's kind of where I am with him.
Yeah. Is an hour and 3 minutes one of the shortest pods for you guys?
Yeah, we had to rush through this.
Probably have to go watch some film or something now to do something.
No, but thank you so much for joining me, Monty. I actually see behind you your whole scrolling board. He's a giant on YouTube. Let's get it to 1.1, 1.2 subs. Let's really get it up there. So no, I will always be thankful, especially for you two. Because it was just a year ago. I was very mentally in a very different spot than where I am right now. It's crazy kind of how far things have kind of come for everybody, including this football team. And I will always be thankful for you, Monty, for you certainly did not have to join me that night. We kicked off the Jackson Dart era together. I will always be thankful, always grateful for you guys. Is there anything that you want to plug? What are you working on? I'm looking forward to kind of letting my hair down. I'm going to some NASCAR races this month. But thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah, man. Wouldn't want it any other way. I mean, we're just gonna talk about the draft, kind of just do some more Giants related episodes, talk about the future, talk about how this is going to change things. We'll get into the 2027 draft at some point, but I think we're kind of the same page where we're gonna. Sal's not ready. We're gonna relax a little bit here, so we're kind of the same way.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you having us on. For those who don't follow us, please, He's a Giant Pod. It's on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Take a look if you get a chance. I mean, there's a ton of videos on prospects. If you want to go back and watch some of those breakdowns, we do have kind of detailed analysis. We do a ton of like film review plus, data stuff and advanced stats, and we try to put it together. So it's long episodes, but Monty, kind of thumbnails them all, so you can just scroll through them and find the players you want. We are going to be doing this coming week. We're going to be doing the Giants depth chart and what it shakes out as. And we were, I think we want to see what it looks like. We were kind of hoping to have DJ Reader on the team by the time it happens. I'm getting a little pissed off right now. So hopefully he's. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But we're going to try to dive into it and see what the defense, and specifically the defense, looks like with the new Dexless team.
Yeah, who do you have at nose tackle right now? Lecky Fotu or Bobby Jamison Travis? So, I mean, don't forget about Sam Roberts.
BJT, let's go. Let's get it.
I was so happy with Bobby Jamison Travis when I thought he was going to be, and he might still be, backing up DJ Reader. And, he's only going to eat like 25-30% of the snaps. It's perfect for him, I don't want to see that kid as a rookie playing like 50% of the snaps.
No.
But like right now, like I'm looking at the depth chart, I'm like, unless something comes out by the time this airs, like
Yep,
I'm a little
that's what I'm
concerned
hoping.
about. I'm a little concerned about where this is headed. We don't have a real nose tackle on the team
Mhm.
right now. It's looking like Sam Roberts and Bobby James and Travis. I don't see any other real nose tackles on the team unless we sign someone.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. He's a Giant Pod. Go check him out. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Like I said, Sean and I, we will be back on Thursday. We're going to be doing a Fanatics 5-0, and we're going to be doing something I don't really know yet. I have a lot of the schedule kind of built out for this offseason of a lot of different things and new episode ideas, and of course, some of the ones that you've known to come and love on this show as the years have come on. But we will see you on Thursday. It'll be Sean Morash. It'll be myself. I hope you enjoy your week. Enjoy it. Stay safe. I love you. Let's go, Giants. See you later in the week.